please help me in welcoming Yashwant Mutsani.
Can everybody hear me? Great. Thanks to Vlad and Emily and Evan for having me, and thank you all for coming. Let's get straight to it. I'm not going to spend any more time on this. Okay, this is going to be the outline. A lot of what I'm going to talk about at first might seem like motherhood and apple pie, you know, sky is green, water is blue, water is wet, and so on, or sky is blue, grass is green, rather. But it really isn't. It is an important aspect of AI. I see a lot of companies so focused on the technical feasibility that these issues tend to get pushed aside. So let's get right to it as to what responsible AI means. And it's basically refers to the practices and processes implemented to ensure that the AI systems that you put into production are accountable, transparent, and aligned with societal values. And the key characteristics of responsible AI are accountability, meaning that there needs to be accountability to, AI systems need to be held to account. They cannot run roughshod. Transparency, it helps to know how the systems arrived at their decisions and what is it. And so for the various stakeholders, especially in industries like healthcare and finance, transparency becomes important. Reliability and safety. That is, you want your AI system not to harm anybody, and you want it to perform the same way most of the or all of the time. And the last but not least, compliance. You do not want to run roughshod or run afoul of the laws. And how would you go about doing this? Well, AI governance frameworks are becoming a lot more common in large companies. And I will talk a bit more about that. It shouldn't be limited to large companies. And you need to conduct regular audits and impact assessments. And last but not least, you could have the world's best AI model, but if your data is crappy, if your data is full of biases, you're not going anywhere. So robust data management practices are key. Now, what is the other part of it? Ethical AI. I've seen a lot of people use responsible and ethical AI often interchangeably. They are kind of the same, but not quite. And so ethical AI is basically, it deals with involving, embedding moral values and principles into the design, development, and deployment of AI systems to ensure that they align with human rights. And these include fairness. You want your AI system not to discriminate against certain groups. You want to respect the user's privacy. Users' private data should remain private. And you want to include all diverse groups. Whether you like it or not, the world is filled with people of different backgrounds and different diverse value systems. You need to make sure your AI systems are reflective of that. And last but not least, you want to make sure that they are doing good. And that, once again, sounds like motherhood and apple pie. But the way to think about it is, what if it doesn't? You have a lot of bad implications if it's not doing that. And so the way you would go about that is with ethical impact assessments. You want to engage with the diverse stakeholders who are going to be using your systems, and you want to develop guidelines and standards for ethical AI practices. Now, some of you might have seen there is a slight difference in focus between these two. So it helps to try to go a little bit deeper into it. Responsible AI has this organizational vibe or an organizational norm. When you talk about responsible AI, you're usually talking about things like policies and governance and compliance. All those pertain more to corporations or corporate entities, whereas ethical AI is more an personal law, individual values, your moral judgments, your ethics. And so the key characteristics of responsible AI would be institutionalization, the consistency, and accountability. Whereas with ethical AI, it's personal responsibility and your moral judgment. And the way you go about implementing the two also reflects the slight differences. You have training, you have audits, you have your various procedures and policies, whereas with ethical AI, it's more of an individual decisions which you're making while you're building the AI system that reflects your value systems. So a classic example would be an AI governance board that oversees compliance is an example of responsible AI. Whereas an AI researcher in a company making the conscious decision to design for fairness and privacy. So there is a slight difference, but at the end of the day, they are both needed. They complement each other. You can't have one without the other. You can't have an AI researcher designing for fairness and privacy if he's working for a company that doesn't give a hoot about about building responsible AI systems. It's not going to work. The same thing happens in reverse. You could have an AI governance board in a large company like Facebook or Microsoft, which they do, by the way, and you can't have a guy I don't care what the data I use to train my models. I just want to get this done. So they both are needed. So how would you go about making AI more responsible? Well, you want to make sure that you employ and build up your workforce that reflects the diversity, because you want to consider the different perspectives. And auditing is not a one-off activity. It is a continual process. It can seem like a bore. It can seem kind of tedious. But when you collect data, you have to make sure you're not introducing any biases. When you develop your models, you want to make sure you don't overfit to the training set, or you remove all of the biases in the training data. Once you deploy your models, you want to test. You want to test to make sure that it does not do the wrong thing. Everybody is familiar with the missteps that Microsoft made with TIE. Within a few days, they had to pull it. And last but not least, there is a lot of FOMO, there is a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of hype about what AI can do and what it cannot do. That is part of the whole notion of responsible AI. You want to make sure that the people are educated about the power and the limitations of the technology. And you've probably have heard this many times, but it bears repeating here. AI is not coming for your job, but I guarantee you the guy or gal who knows how to use AI most certainly is coming for your job. So you want to educate yourself. You want to prepare yourself for that. So I'm just going to end this section of the talk by saying, make sure there is an AI governance policy in your company, and you're never too small to have one. If you're a startup with a CEO, come CTO, and two other guys, it's the responsibility of that CEO to make sure that you're following these principles. Because these good habits, they tend to propagate as you become larger. If you're a large company like Microsoft, you have the luxury of having an AI governance board, which they do. Microsoft and Google and Meta, they all have well-established teams. But you do not have to wait until you reach that size to do that. It is the mindset. Because if you don't, you're going to pay the price And as I'd like to say, proactive action is always better than reactive melodrama. I should probably trademark, but that being said, let's switch gears and move to the IP aspect of it, which is part of the responsible AI as well. But I think it is, it is fair to say that generative AI is proving to be an IP lawyer's dream. We all have heard about the lawsuit that the New York Times has filed against OpenAI. And Midjourney 5, DALL-E, and Stable Diffusion have already been accused of plagiarizing their images. Sora is probably next in line. IP and true ownership of AI-generated content is a thorny issue. It is not clear to me. I see at least one lawyer in the room, and we've had some extended discussions about fair use and non-fair use. Don't have time to go into that. But I think guardrails are coming, whether you like it or not. And they are going to be in the form of watermarking, regulatory requirements, best practices. But the bottom line is, generative AI does not give you the right to steal or plagiarize or give you a free pass to steal somebody else's IP. And one of my favorite scenes is worth playing here.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
And that applies to a lot of what you're seeing right now in AI. People are still in this mode. Look, Ma, I can do this. Well, but should you really be doing this? Probably not. So, the good news is that technological guardrails do exist. And what are those guardrails? Blockchain, of course, but I'm not referring to Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of those other fancy tokens. And I'm going to briefly get on my soapbox here. Bitcoin and all the other cryptocurrencies are just one application of blockchain. Blockchain is a lot more than that. And how many of you know what blockchain is all about? Okay. Quite a few. How many of you know what smart contracts are? Okay, even less. Okay. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but real quick, if you've used Google Sheets, a very simple way to think about blockchain is like a Google Sheet that you can write to, but once you write to a cell, it cannot be changed. If you want to change what you have written to a shell into a cell of this Google Sheet called blockchain, you have to just write to a new cell. And everything that you write to a blockchain gets recorded. And so it basically gives you an immutable trail. So this is just the benefits of blockchain. You cannot tamper with the content of a blockchain once it's written. And that's very powerful because it gives you this immutable audit trail. Once you put something on the blockchain, if you say later on, oh my God, that value was wrong, it should have been 4.52 instead of 4.02. Well, your only fix is go create a new block where you say that what was 4.52 in that block actually needs to be 4.02. And this new block that you write has the value with the date stamp. So, and it will not be accepted into the blockchain unless everybody who has a copy of the blockchain says it's okay. And so that is the transparency. Everybody can see the information and its complete, unalterable history. I am abstracting at a very high level here because I could give an entire talk on blockchain, which I'm not going to do here. So, but the key part is, I mean, these three aspects of blockchain are what make it so useful as a guardrail for AI and generative AI. And the last part, a blockchain is by definition trustless. What does that mean? It is a distributed ledger that is not under the control of any single central authority. So you do not have to trust anybody. And that inherently makes it the most trustworthy way of doing business. When you come to think about it, the fact that you are not dependent on a single entity to do the right thing means that there is a very high probability that the right thing will be done every single time, because everybody can see what changes are being made. And you cannot add a chain, you cannot add a new block to the blockchain unless it is verified by everybody. And there are different mechanisms for achieving consensus. You might have heard of proof of work, there's proof of stake, and so on and so forth. A real quick word on smart contracts. Smart contracts are basically programmatically executed contracts on the blockchain, which once again don't involve any human intervention. Once you have the terms of the contract in, if those conditions are met, boom, the contract gets executed. So just one example, smart contracts are very great, very useful in the supply chain. If you're moving one truckload of goods from point A to point B, and you can verify that the perishable foodstuffs in that truck were maintained at the proper temperature for the entire length of the trip, which is say 1,000 miles, then the guy who shipped that product gets the full amount. Because you know by the IoT sensors, which were constantly feeding information about the temperature to the blockchain, that indeed for the entire trip, it was maintained at within the temperature range. If, for example, that the truck had a breakdown and it went outside the range for about 2 hours, then the smart contract will say, because it was outside the range for 2 hours, you're going to be paid $850 for the shipment instead of 1,000 or whatever the number is. And all those terms are agreed to beforehand, so there's no issue. You're not relying on the trucker lying to you. You're not relying on the supplier pulling a fast one, and you're not relying on the customer having a change of mind after he got the goods. It's completely trustless, and it works. That is the power of smart contracts. What does all this have to do with AI? Well, you can record the provenance and ownership of data that's used to train a generative AI model. A lot of the issues that people have had with these Gen AI models is they don't know where the data came from. When OpenAI first trained their GPT-3 or GPT-3.5 models, they went to the dark web because they were so hungry for data, which is why it is fairly easy to take GPT 3.5 down dark rabbit holes with just a few prompts, because it is just giving you the most next probable word in the sequence from that portion of the training data. And thanks to blockchain, you could have decentralized AI training platforms. What that means is, if your AI model got data from 15 different sources, each one of those data contributors can be compensated for their fraction of the data that they contributed to your model, and it's all automated. It's all via smart contracts, no issues. And you can have a decentralized marketplace for AI models. As we move through our AI journey, you're going to have many different people training their own AI models. They need a place to go and sell them. If you have a blockchain-enabled, decentralized marketplace, where you can verify the authenticity of the data used to train those models, and the performance of those models will also be on the blockchain. Becomes very simple. Now, you might think that what I'm saying is a pipe dream, but it's not. There are actually companies that are doing this. And this is a quick rundown of all of the different areas where blockchain and generative AI actually intersect. And in the last column, you see the names of the companies that are actually doing that. Unfortunately, most of them are startups, which will tell you all you need to know about how popular using blockchain for Gen AI is, because it requires a lot of infrastructure, which the big boys right now have no incentive. And who's going to force them? The market is not, but they don't see the value in investing in the blockchain infrastructure to make this happen. But what all I'm saying is there is a technological guardrail that exists, and these companies have the right idea. So I'm going to go, how much time do I have even?
All the time you need.
Okay, great. So you will learn, not to tell that to me, but the data integrity and provenance. So for example, Gen AI can, as we all know and love, can do text, music, images, but if you want to verify the authenticity and origin of the content, you have a company named Althea AI that does that. Decentralized AI training. You have massive amounts of training data from a variety of sources. You want to create a decentralized AI training platform where multiple parties can contribute and they can be rewarded. A company like Ocean Protocol is doing just that. Has anybody heard of NBA Top Shot? Or, there you go, or CryptoKitties? Those are examples of tokenized content that has been generated using generative AI. And let me just take the example of NBA Top Shot, since we just had a really great season by the Dallas Mavs. That is a fully licensed program. What it is it is selling you key moments, fan moments, which are video clips, short video clips of different players, which are basically kind of the highlight reels. And those are fully authenticated and you can own them. So it's basically an NFT, a non-fungible token. But the point here is you don't have to worry about the authenticity of that clip. That is an actual clip. It has been vouched for by the NBA, and this company, the Dapper Labs, is the one that's behind both CryptoKitties and NBA Top Shot. And you can own that clip, and you can do with that clip what you want because you have bought it. And so that's an example. Privacy and data security. This company, Nebula Genomics, is actually in the genome space, but they are a great example of how you can create synthetic data sets for your research without divulging private human data. And blockchain, and Gen AI will let you create those new data sets, but you can also use blockchain to make sure that the security and privacy of the users on whose data you got these new sets are not compromised. And this company, in fact, if there's only two companies that you want to go and dig further into, I would recommend Singularity Net and humans.ai. Singularity Net just closed their 6th round of VC funding, and they've been in existence since 2017. And they are actually creating a decentralized marketplace for AI models. If you have an AI model and you are willing to submit to their rules of making sure that you are able to vouch for the provenance and an origin of where you got the data, you can actually go and use their online marketplace and make money off of the models. And then here, of course, IBM has been at the forefront of the responsible AI movement in general, but they've also done some great work on blockchain. So it's no surprise that their name is here, and they actually have shown how you can make AI models more accountable and have an immutable audit trail for the AI models that they provide. And so, and last but not least, this is my most favorite company on the slide. They actually provide, their vision is called the blockchain of AIs. They want to build a blockchain of AI systems, and they want to provide the capability for people to get compensated for what they do while you're building AI systems. They have created their own token. They call it the AGIX token, AGI standing for Artificial General Intelligence. That's a kind of an aspirational name, if you ask me, but that's a whole different topic. But they are doing some great work, and they are still in seed funding. So the bottom line here is blockchain can provide the much needed guardrails for generative AI, both in terms of auditing and transparency, which people these days bemoan that you don't know what AI is doing. All those problems that people talk about AI and generative AI having can be solved by blockchain. And I'm very careful when I say can be solved, because I don't see any movement by the big companies who have the deep pockets to make this happen. I don't see any movement in that direction yet, with the possible exception of IBM. And I think that AI is really the true killer app for blockchain. I know there might be some Bitcoin guys here who might not like that characterization, but I think AI and blockchain have a lot going when they work together. So I almost at the end of my talk, I just want to leave you with these thoughts. Human creativity is still our biggest asset. All these tools are fantastic, no question about it. Claude, GPT-4o, Gemini, 1.5 Pro, all those. And there's a whole host of other tools. And they are going to help you. They're going to make you get things done faster. I mean, GitHub Copilot is a boon to all programmers, myself included. Programmers in general are lazy, and this makes us even more lazier, but it's good. These tools should never replace your creativity or your ingenuity or your humanity. Because if you rely too much on these tools, it's just a recipe for robotic mediocrity, as I like to say. They are tools, and you need to treat them as such. And don't abdicate your oversight or your accountability or your final output in favor of these tools. always check what these tools give you as output. Because oftentimes, as we all know, they give out garbage, which sounds good, but it really is garbage. And that also goes towards this notion of being responsible when you build these AI systems. So that actually brings me to the end of my talk. And I would be very remiss if I don't make a shameless plug for my course. This is a course which is designed for non-technical professionals, which means a whole bunch of people who raise their hands that they work at PMG may not be interested in this course because they're all hardcore programmers, I'm sure. So this course doesn't have any Python, no machine learning math of any kind. Dave General has taken the course, so if you want to know what he thought of it, go talk to him. But it is designed for business leaders, sales and marketing professionals, top level, mid-level managers, anybody who doesn't care about the technical details of AI, who couldn't care less about how the models are built, but wants to know what AI can do for them, what are the application areas, what are the interactions, what are the use cases, and more importantly, what are the limitations. This course is for you. I have done 2 cohorts, and I'm about to start the 3rd cohort. It's going to be at Divergence Academy. The dates are still not nailed down yet, but it's going to be 4 in-person sessions. I don't believe in Zoom. I'm sorry, I'm a Zoom refugee. I'd like in-person. 4 in-person sessions, 3 hours a week. If you want more details, as they are right now, you can scan the QR code or come talk to me. And with that, I'd like to open it up for questions. Yes.
So, great presentation.
Thank you.
The issue is several slides back, it mentioned transparency.
Right.
And you were talking about loading data, et cetera. How transparent is that?
Well, there are certain limitations which are an artifact of the model technology that you're going to use. So I'm just going to take the example of CNNs, convolutional neural networks. Those are what are being used in FaceTime, or in the Face ID and every facial recognition system, and a lot of the vision systems, they all use CNNs. And based on how many pooling layers there are and how many convolution layers there are, it can become quite involved to explain how it came up with its output. And CNNs are what are used in the healthcare space for automatic reading of X-rays.
That sounds like intentional public distribution. I'm talking about proprietary client information.
Okay. Okay. I see where you're going. The point I was making there is I am not saying that you need to expose what a proprietary client data is just because you're using AI. All I'm saying is you need some kind of way to understand that the AI, how the AI was able to use the training data to arrive at the output that it did. And so you need that level of accountability or that level of transparency to the stakeholders. Now, your stakeholder might be such that he doesn't want his data to be exposed. But, right. But as the developer of the AI system, you need to be able to explain at a high level to your stakeholder why the AI is doing what it's doing. And I think that is not a it's not an unreasonable ask. Yeah.
That's arguable. There's a difference between explainability
Right.
and privacy.
Right. Yeah. I think you might be focusing a bit too much on the fact that your clients' data might be exposed. And I think transparency doesn't equate to that. You should be able to explain to him how your AI models took his data, which might be the top secret data in the world, and how it gave the answer that it gave. I mean, I can show you examples of ChatGPT-4 hallucinating like crazy. And none of the OpenAI engineers will be able to explain why it gave me the output that it did. And that is bad. That's the point I'm making.
Blockchain do that I couldn't do to explain what the AI is doing.
The blockchain will not rely on somebody having to trust you, because here there is an implicit trust that the client is placing on you. You could have unintentionally gotten the source of the data wrong. You could have gotten the date of the data wrong. There are a number of things where the client now has to rely on your expertise. What blockchain does is it takes that human element out of the whole equation, because every step of the way, it is being recorded on the blockchain for everybody to see what the process was. So there is no more you're not trusting anybody to do the right thing. And that is the beauty of it, because it's trustless.
Okay. I see the value.
Yeah. So sure.
Question?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an elementary question. I know like Bitcoin stuff use blockchain and it's
Right.
been hacked.
Right.
And your foundation of talking is blockchain is solid. It's not going to be hacked.
I don't think I ever made that statement.
Yeah, but I just want to know, you didn't talk about that blockchain is the weakness of blockchain. That's what I'm saying.
Right. I mean, there have been a lot of very highly publicized hacks, but with each hack, the system has been patched to a point where right now, you might find this hard to believe, but the Bitcoin blockchain is one of the most secure blockchains in the world. And here is why. Because of the number of times it has been replicated. I mean, that is the whole power. Because it's a peer-to-peer network which replicates every copy of every transaction. For you to spoof somebody with a bogus transaction, you will have to do that across all of the nodes. And given the number of nodes, which now number into the millions, that is an impossibility. But yes, there have been hacks of blockchain, but the last one was several years ago. I can't vouch for the other tokens, like Dogecoin and all of the other tokens. So if you want to play in the cryptocurrency space, you either know exactly what it's doing or you have way too much of money. Well, yes, and these companies like humans.ai and SingularityNet, they have taken all those things into account. So they are building their own blockchain. But what humans.ai has done is they offer a bridge to other existing blockchain. And there is something called an IBC standard, an inter-blockchain communication protocol, which allows content from one blockchain to talk to other blockchains. And that is a well-respected standard, and these guys are implementing it. And once again, the reason you don't hear about it is these companies at the end of the day are very small. They have the right idea, but they are all in the seed stage or in the VC stage. For it to be really useful, it has to be more prevalent. And the big boys with the deep pockets don't see the commercial value or the push to do these things yet. My point was, if you want to fix the problems of Gen AI, there is a way to fix it. As to whether it'll get fixed is a completely different story. Yeah. Any other question? Yeah.
Oh, cool. Thank you. First of all, thank you for coming and thank you for the presentation. I can think of, based on your presentation, of several different use cases, how to marry AI and blockchain, distributed training, validated inference,
Yep.
validated ownership of data
Yep.
or models, etc., etc. If we list all the possible use cases, how we can combine AI and blockchain, which one is at the top of the list? Which one you believe is the most valuable? What is this number one use case?
I think a lot of the lawsuits which you're seeing will kind of go away if you're able to establish the provenance and the origin of the training data.
Ownership of the training data.
Yes. And the proper reward for the people who are contributing the data. I mean, that is the crux of the lawsuit that the New York Times has against OpenAI. You are taking our news clips or news segments, and you have trained your AI model.
But wait. New York Times didn't need blockchain to validate the ownership of their data.
No. But I'm just using that as an example.
Okay, so
Yeah.
as an example of a problem, and you're
Right,
saying blockchain
right,
is
right.
okay, cool. Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank
yeah.
you so much.
I have a question. So on that topic, right here on your left.
I'm
on your
sorry.
left, right here.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah.
So you talked about provenance and ownership of data and compensation of the data, et cetera. How does synthetic data, now that we're using synthetic data quite a bit, how does that play into this ownership, financing of all this? And
That is a good question because you have to peel back the onion to find out how they got that synthetic data, right? So, I mean, if, for example, OpenAI's Sora, I'm sure you all have seen the absolutely stunning videos that they have done. That wasn't generated in a vacuum. It was trained on real video, which was shot by an accomplished videographer. So you have to peel back that onion to see what is the contribution made by those hundreds or thousands of videographers whose content you took, probably without proper authorization, knowing the way OpenAI has worked so far. I mean, with all due respect. But so you have to start there. Have they properly compensated them? Do they have the proper license?
there's always some basis, even for
Right.
synthetic data.
Right. I mean, because where we are right now, for better or for worse, the toothpaste is already out of the tube. So you have to start at some point. So. Yep, I can.
Used for educational purpose.
Copyrighted material, yeah.
Has it been resolved yet whether or not copyrighted material can be used to, quote, educate your AI? Is that sort of uncharted legal territory yet?
I don't know. Robert might have a better answer to that. But let me try. I think I know where you're going with this, but the point here is it is the monetization of that copyrighted material, which it's the monetization of the output, the source
Have
of
to make
which
sure the output doesn't ever match copyrighted material.
it's not the matching, right? I mean, the way I would approach it is, going back to your example of the copyrighted material being used for education, somebody went and bought those books. So there was an exchange of some value. I mean, you buy books on Amazon all the time. I mean, if you got the books for free from your school paid for the books. So the author or the creator of that educational content was compensated in some fashion. It is. It hasn't been ironed out yet. And that is going to be the subject of a lot of lawsuits. And as with any new technology, you need a big bang lawsuit of some kind before everybody wakes up and says, oh my God, we got to do something about this. And I think we are there, or we are approaching that really fast. Thank you. Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
I see a lot of hands.
I think Robert wants to say
Oh, okay.
something.
Well, we're talking legal. I got to get Robert in here. Come on. Last question.
Well, just to follow up on that, I think there's open season on litigation with copyright. There's all kinds of novel questions of law. I think the interesting thing that you raised was, can you educate a computer, and does that fall within some sort of exception for educational use? And I would be surprised, but I don't think there's any case precedent on that. But likewise, it came up in the context with a Gen AI use case solution of, the practice of law. Can a contract creation tool, is that practicing law? And so far, under most state bar rules, you actually have to be a human to hold a law license. So a computer can't have a law license.
There you go.
But the question I wanted to ask you is on one of the things that I see in lots of use cases is where the data gets transformed with Gen AI, and then that data makes its way back into a client database. And the thing that I always recommend that I worry about is data corruption of the database.
Yep.
It's like if Gen AI hallucinates, changes data in the database, if you can't trace that data to know, well, how do we back that out? Then potentially you've corrupted an entire database. So I always recommend that you need to do something. I don't know if it's metadata tagging so that you can track Gen AI outputs that go into a database to know what Gen AI changed.
Yeah.
But as you were talking about blockchain, it seems like that's another use case for blockchain.
Yep.
Is if you have the source data on a blockchain and then the value gets changed by Gen AI, to your point, that would be a value change that gets added to the blockchain. But I don't know how easy that is to audit if you discover that a LLM model hallucinated, you've got, very low accuracy of 60%, and you need to go clean up the database. Armed with that knowledge, how would you do that if you were using blockchain to keep track of what Gen AI did to change the database?
That is going to be a huge mess, which you have to unwind. I mean, and there have been research papers that talk about how bad data generated by Gen AI finds its way into data that is then used to train a new Gen AI model. So you have to peel it back layer by layer to see where the whole mess started. And this goes back to my point. It is going to be tough because there was no blockchain when OpenAI did GPT-3 or 3.5 or 4. There was no blockchain when Google did their models, and now they are up and running. And so you have these small companies now saying that, hey, you have to do it like this, and they are kind of swimming upstream. So I don't have a good answer to that question. It's a mess. All right. I think you're done.
I think so. Yes. Sorry
Thank
to
you.
shut us off.